What's up YouTube? It's Martin here again from Resolution Breakers, back to do the second half of the review videos. This time we'll be going through the Legends deck with the Rune-Knights. So first we've got 2 copies of Dragon Rider Aleksandra. Again, as you saw with the last video, with Shingen there was 1 shiny and then 1. It was done with the shimmer card, so it's quite blurred out. But at least you can tell which one's the shiny, which one isn't. This guy, this card is just like, at the moment he just seems to be the boss of the game. When he comes to the field, it always causes problems for some reason. I'm not sure why. It's just because he's got a 4000 power base, got 3 life, 2 hit. He has 3 effects just like Shingen in the other Dojo deck. His first effect is a resolve effect, his leader effect, which is active whilst on 1 damage. Which is each time a Rune-Knight unit you control blocks, that unit gets power plus 1000 until the end of that battle. That 1000 power is always needed. His other effect, which can be used out of the leader zone, it can be used anywhere on the field, which is once per turn during your main step, if you control 2 or more Rune-Knight units, excluding this card, you can send 3 cards from your reserve pile to the graveyard, and this unit gets hit plus 1 until the end step. His third effect is, if this unit is not in the leader zone, it gets hit -1 and life -2. Just like Shingen, he'll become a normal unit while in the unit area. His second effect with the sending 3, the sending 3 is quite a big cost, but for that extra hit, it's not too bad. Especially with the Rune-Knights, you don't really use the reserve pile, so that's why it's a bigger number for his cost. Next up, we got 2 copies of Dual Shield Marcus. Again, you got the shimmer paper one here and the normal one there. It's got 1 life, 1 hit, 2000 power, Protector resolve effect, which is active whilst on 2 damage. Which is, when this unit blocks, it gets power plus 2000 until the end of that battle, which is just the Protector effect in general. And then his other effect himself is, once per turn, when this unit blocks successfully, you can send 1 card from your reserve pile to the graveyard to refresh this unit. Like in the Dojo deck with Yukimura, if you recall that card, which is when he gets blocked, you can send 1 card from your reserve pile to the graveyard to refresh him. This is basically the Rune-Knight's version, the equivalent, which instead it's the blocking version. As you can see, the Rune-Knight deck is all about blocking. It's a very defensive deck. Its whole main purpose is to block your opponent off and wait for the counter attack. Especially with the Dragon Aleksandra's hit ability to give himself an extra hit. You're basically relying on your opponent to be fully blocked and not able to do anything, and then you just come back with a counter attack. Then we got 4 copies of Shield of Sanctum Garrison. This is the starter leader, the one that activates whilst on 0 damage. He's got 2 life, 1 hit, 2000 power. His leader effect isn't that great, which is, at the end of a battle, a Rune-Knight unit you control blocked. This unit gets power plus 1000 until the end step. This effect can only be used once per turn. His other effect is just he becomes a normal unit on the sideline. So basically he loses that extra life that he's got. Up next we got 4 copies of Indomitable Titan Hogan. Now this is like in the previous video with the dojos, if you remember Blade of Blazing Soul Ken, he's the generic leader, which is at the start of the main step, you place top card of your deck into reserve pile, gains 1000 to the end step. He's just basically pretty much the same card, but the Rune-Knight's equivalent. 2 life, 1 hit, 3000 power, and he becomes a normal unit while on the sidelines in the unit area. Then you got 4 copies of Impenetrable Shield Will. This is the 2000 power Protector card. 1 life, 1 hit, 2000 power. He's just basically got the Protector resolve effect, which is active whilst on 1 damage. When he blocks, he gains power plus 2000 to the end of that battle. And then up next we got 4 copies of Persevering Knight Gareth. He's just basically he's just got protector effect. The 1000 protector, 1 life, 1 hit, just like Will. He's got no other effect apart from the protector resolve effect. And then there's 4 copies of Mighty Guard Guy, or as someone would like to call him, Mighty Shield Guy, or Mighty Guard Shield, or Mighty Guy of Shields or something.
So?
He's just a plain vanilla card for the Rune-Knights, just no effect, no anything. It's just 1 life, 1 hit, 2000 power. Just whichever clan will have a card like this. Then there's 4 of Gauntlet Gateholder Garuda. Now from the dojos, if you remember Benkei, which is the card that I said I didn't really like, but the whole purpose of that card was not to be liked. It depends on the player to like it or not. This will be another kind of card like that. For the Rune-Knights, it's not too bad. Like I said with Aleksandra, you don't really use your reserve pile, so this card could come in handy a lot more. Unlike with the dojos, you never really have much of a reserve pile. But he's the opposite of Benkei. He's got 1 life, 1 hit, 3000 power. He cannot attack at all. But his other effect is if this unit would block, you must send 1 card from reserve pile beforehand, basically. And then there's 4 of Prosperous Chavarria Hildegard. My personal favourite art of all of the cards. I think this one came out the best out of every one that I've done. I mean, the program I used, it's not got very high-tech stuff. I don't really like do much shading or anything, but I just really liked how this came out. Yeah, it's the generic card effect which every clan's gonna have, like with the dojos, which if you remember that fat samurai guy that you during your main step you rest it to discard 1 card and then draw a card. It's got 1 life, 1 hit, 1000 power. But again, my personal favourite. And then there's 4 copies of Shield Spearbearer Basil. The dojos have pretty much the same kind of card as this. Obviously, it's not going to be the same card. It's not going to be Basil, but it's got the same effects and everything. If you remember Hayate from the previous video, it's got 1 life, 1 hit, 1000 power. It's got 2 effects. The first one is once per turn, when your opponent declares an attack, this unit gets power plus 1000 until the end step. Then his other effect is once per turn, when a unit you control attacks other than this card, this unit gets power plus 1000 until the end step. And then there's 2 copies of Grail Bestower Atticus. Now this card, from a second person's opinion, it got downgraded a lot. Whereas it used to be, I'll tell you the effect first and then I'll tell you what it used to be. It's got 1 life, 1 hit, 1000 power. Once per turn, during your main step, you can rest this card and send 1 card from your reserve pile to the graveyard. To choose one of a rune that you control, it gets life plus 1. What it used to be, you didn't used to have to send any cards from your reserve pile. But, as I said before, the Rune-Knights don't use the reserve pile that often. And I just thought, getting an extra life, especially in the Rune-Knight deck, where you can sit with Aleksandra in the field and you're pretty much guaranteed to not really get hit that much. So if Aleksandra is going to keep continuing to get extra health, and this if you have 3 of this guy on the field, that's giving him plus 3 extra health, and then that means he's sitting there on 6 life, and it's pretty difficult to actually damage him. This is why he got a downgrade. And then there's 2 copies of Barrio of Elegance Lamorak. In the previous video I explained about how every deck's going to have this kind of generic effect in the deck, but they're all going to be different and unique to the clans. This is that card. It's basically the leader searching card. It's got 1 life, 1 hit, 2000 power, and its effect is at the end of a battle this unit blocks successfully, you can send this unit from your unit area to the graveyard, search your deck for 1 Rune-Knight unit with a leader effect, add it to your hand, shuffle your deck and then discard 1 card. Like in the other deck, in the dojo deck, you have Sasuke, which his effect is when he deals an attack himself. This guy has to block himself. In every deck it's going to be different, they're not going to be exactly the same. But yeah, this is basically just a generic leader searching card. Now with the units out of the way, we move on to the spell cards. We've got 1 copy of Shield of Legend Rune. the shimmer card actually is quite visible with this one. It's a flash spell. Flash spells can be used at any point. But this one's effect is when your opponent declares an attack on a Rune-Knight unit in your leader zone, send one card from your hand to your reserve pile. The attacked unit takes 0 damage from that battle. The next card we got one copy of Knights of the Rune Table. It's a permanent spell card. Its effect is each time a Rune-Knight unit blocks at the end of that battle, every Rune-Knight unit in your unit area gets power plus 1000. Increases by this effect only last until the end step. And then we've got 2 copies of Gaia's Hammer Mule. Nordic mythology, Thor's hammer, if any of you know about that mythology kind of stuff. I don't even know if I'm saying the name right myself, but it's a flash spell. Its effect is you can only cast this card when your opponent declares an attack. Choose one nature type unit you control. It gets power plus 1000 for every other nature type unit on the field. Then we've got 1 copy of Gaia Quake. Its effect is you can only cast this card if the only units you control are nature type. Rest all unrested units in your opponent's unit area. Then you got 2 copies of Inherited Soul. If you remember its effect from the previous video, I'll tell you again anyway. It's a flash spell. You send 1 unit from your hand to the graveyard and choose 1 unit you control of the same type. That unit gets power plus X. Bracket X equals the power of the said unit. Close bracket until the end step. Then you got 1 copy of Emergency Blessings. Again from that previous video if you remember the effect. Otherwise I'll still tell you anyway. It's a flash spell. The effect is you can only cast this card during the end step. For each rested unit you control, send the top card of your deck to your reserve pile. Then you got 1 copy of Fatigue Supplements. Again, it's in the other deck, so if you remember its effect, I'll still tell you anyway. It's a flash spell. You send any amount of cards from your reserve pile to the graveyard, then choose an equal amount of rested units you control. Refresh those chosen units. Then 1 copy of Equivalent Exchange. Again, this is in the other deck. It's a normal spell card. Discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. So that's the Heroes and Legends deck. Both of the starter decks. Gone through, shown you each card individually. I hope you enjoyed. If you like what you saw, leave a comment, like the video, subscribe. I really hope you enjoyed watching. So I'll see you in the next video.